And on this week's In Focus session, we will be discussing why it's really impactful and important to show up empty in your life. So, what does that mean? Show up empty. Like, literally, what does that mean? Showing up empty is basically bringing your best self to the table. And your best self is the version of you that doesn't bring any judgment or any stories or any preconceptions or any blame or guilt or whatever to any situation in life, right? And that's what it means to show up empty. When you drop all of that stuff and you just show up as an empty space, ready to listen, ready to receive, ready to just be and observe with what is, that's you showing up empty. So why is this powerful, right? It's probably what you're thinking. Well, it's powerful for a huge number of reasons, right? When you're approaching a situation, showing up completely empty, dropping all of those judgments, dropping all of those stories, dropping all of those ideas that you may have going into something, when you really show up empty, you're able to really hear, you're able to really like observe what is going on. And when you can do that, you allow your wisdom to speak to you. You allow what you know and your truth to come to you, right? And one of the places that this is really, really obvious, yeah, is dating. Like when people go dating and they're going on a first date, right? They're bringing so much judgment and stories and ideas to the table when they meet this person. They're thinking, oh, this guy is tall, or this guy's small, or this guy dresses well, or this guy, I hope this guy has a good job. I hope he did this. I hope that. And I hope he's kind. And I hope he's that. I hope he's not like this. I hope he's not rude to the bar staff. I hope. And that's all incredible amounts of judgment, right? And I'm not saying that all of that stuff isn't going to play a part in the decision of whether you want to go on another date with this person or continue a relationship with the person. Of course it will. But if you're already going into a date with all of this judgment in place, then how are you ever going to really see and receive this person for who they truly are? Whereas when you show up empty, you can allow your wisdom to make those calls for you. And that is way more powerful than bringing like a list of stuff that you want to judge this person on going into a date. Like just show up empty and really listen, be present, enjoy that person's company as best as you can, and allow your wisdom to tell you, okay, maybe this isn't the person for me, or maybe I want to spend more time with this person. And you'll get way more out of that date than you would if you turned up to the table with a list of judgments, a list of stuff that you want to base how the date went on because of all of this criteria you have. You're just not doing yourself or the other person any favors at all. And it reminds me of a story, right, of this really rich and powerful king who goes one day to a high monk in his castle or in his monastery or whatever they call them. And he goes to the monk and he goes, I want you to teach me. I want you to teach me everything you know. I want to learn all of your wisdom. I want to be more calm and more peaceful so that I can, really serve my people and I can really be as powerful as I can be. So the monk says, okay, and sits the king down and says, would you like a drink? King's like, yeah, sure. So the monk comes over, puts a glass on the table and starts to fill up the glass with water. And as he's filling up the glass, it's rising, gets to the top of the glass. He continues to pour the water until it's overflowing down the sides of the cup on the table. And then it's flowing onto the king's like nice, expensive clothing. And the king's like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the monk looks at him and says, you're like this cup. You're already full of ideas and conceptions of what you want to get from my teachings and what I can teach you. Until you're able to empty your cup and come to me as an empty person, I'm not going to be able to teach you anything because you're too full for me to try and teach you. And that's what it really means to show up empty, right? When you show up empty, you're ready to receive, right? It's not about being like anonymous and boring or whatever. It's about being ready to receive whatever it is that's in front of you. And if you're not showing up empty to do that, you're not going to be able to receive because you're already full of your own stories and judgment. And I just think that's incredible because it's so powerful how that can work, not just in your relationships, it can work in your work life, in your personal life. It can help you perform better at work by doing that. It can help you be a better partner, a better friend, a better brother, a son, whatever it is, right? And this is so important because like when you're able to do that, like you can really dramatically change your life. And I'm saying that from personal experience. Like when I'm working with people, when I'm coaching, or when I'm even sometimes with my friends or with my girlfriend, like I really, as best as I can, try to show up empty. I try not to bring my stresses and my worries and my judgments and all of this stories about myself or about them that I have to the table, because it's not going to serve me or the other person if I'm just bringing all of that to the table. I want to be showing up empty so that I can actually really appreciate the moment and enjoy what's going on in front of me in that moment, but also look to receive, and through that, allow my wisdom to come through and speak to me with what's true in that moment. And if I'm not able to do that, my wisdom is just going to be clouded out by all of these stories and all of this stuff that I've got going on in my head and all this stuff that I'm bringing to the table. That's not useful for anyone. And we do it all the time. And I'm not saying that I don't do it. I still do it in many situations. But the moments where I really show up empty, like you have really incredible conversation. You connect way better with people. So here's a good example, right? So earlier today I went to the barbers and I just try to show up empty. Normally, when I go to the barber, we sit, we talk about football, we banter each other, spend the whole time talking about, football and this and that. Turned up today and I was completely empty. And we had a really deep and interesting conversation about self-development, about coaching, about just the society and culture and addictions and all of this stuff. And that's because I just was willing to not bring the previous experience and the previous stories and the previous ideas of always talking about football and bantering each other to the barbershop. I was just willing to sit there and be empty and see what came up in the conversation. And we had an incredible conversation. We probably connected far deeper and better than we have previously because we were both able to do that. And that's what I mean by showing up empty and how powerful it can be for you. And it reminds me of a quote I heard by a swimming coach called Mel Marshall, where she said, "Go to bed an expert, but wake up a novice." And I love that because what it's saying is to go to bed every day full of what you've received, information or whatever throughout that day. But when you wake up the next day, wake up empty. Wake up ready to receive more. Wake up ready to learn, ready to grow, ready to experience, without any of the stuff that you learned the day before and the day before that and the weeks before that and the months before that. Just show up empty and you'll get far more out of your time in your day by doing that. And I think that's incredibly powerful because if you're not doing that, if you're not showing up empty, you're just bringing like all of this not very useful stuff to the table. And when I say not very useful, I mean like these stories that we have about ourselves that hold us back from really truly being who we are in that moment are the things that are stopping us from being that, right? And when we show up empty, we drop all of that and we just allow ourselves to be free from it. And we allow ourselves to just live purely for our own wisdom, for our own clarity, through our own inner peace. And doing that allows you to become a better human for yourself, but then the people around you. And I've seen a vast improvement in my relationships since I've been able to understand this for myself in my life and what it looks like and what it means to show up empty. And that's why I think it's so important, because when you do it, you're really able to create impact in your own life. And then from that space of showing up empty, right? So if I'm saying that from now on, in any moment, I'm showing up empty, right? That means that what is right in front of me, my future in the next day or months or years, is also empty. That becomes incredibly powerful, because when you are saying that your future is entirely empty, it doesn't have to be like X. It doesn't have to be like Y. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be doing that. You're able to create what you really want to create in your life. And that's a real power. That's a real superpower when it comes to like creating the life you want for yourself. And, loads of people will have stories about what their future is going to look like, or what it should look like, or what it, will look like if nothing changes. Well, what if you didn't need to believe those stories? What if you drop those stories? Then what? Now your future's empty. And when your future is empty, you can really show up powerfully and you can really create the thing you want. And that's been incredibly powerful for me. That is how I've always tried to show up in my life. Whether I meant it or not at the time is a different story, right? But when I was younger, I never knew what I wanted to do when I was older. I didn't have a plan. I didn't say, oh, I wanted to be a doctor, or I wanted to be a physiotherapist, or I wanted to be a property person, or wanted to be this. I had no idea. So my future when it came to career wise was entirely empty. I would never in a million years put myself in a position of being a coach or a podcaster. But here I am. Whereas if I'd gone down the journey of like, this is the future that I have set out for myself, I would never have arrived in this space now where I feel more free and more inspired and more creative and more, just incredibly powerful within my own life. Because I feel like there's more ownership of it, because I created the future that I wanted for myself, and I'll continue to do that. And the only way that I can do that is by treating the future as being empty. And if I say, okay, the future's empty, the question I can ask is, well, what do I want to create? And that becomes incredibly powerful, because that question, that simple question, what do you want to create in your life, in your future, will allow you to see the possibilities of how you can make that happen. Whereas if you don't have those possibilities, that idea of what you want to create, then you're just going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck with the stories that you have. You're going to be stuck on the path that you're on. You're going to be stuck living the way that your life has been year in, year out, year in, year out. And you could be happy doing that, and that's cool. I'm not saying that's not. But if you don't feel fulfilled within that, then maybe you need to set out and say, okay, what if my future is empty? How would I want it to look? And see what you come up with. Write some stuff down. Hit me up on Instagram. Let me know. How do you want your future to look? What do you want to create in your future? What do you want to create in the next 12 months? DM me on Instagram at I'm Alex Manzi. Answer some of those questions. In fact, I'm going to invite you to do so. If you're listening to this now, watching this now, answer those questions. Let me know, because they will be incredibly powerful for you just by writing the answers out for yourself. You will see what is truly meaningful for you. You will see, if my future is empty, what would I want to create in the next 12 months? What do I want to create in the rest of my life? You're now going to have a possibility and opportunity to do that. Whereas before, if you're looking at it like, oh, well, I've done 5 years at uni and I've spent X amount of years in this career and I've got this responsibility, that responsibility. Like, they're just stories that you're bringing to the table, that you're projecting into your future, that aren't even necessarily true. They don't even have to be there in your future. They might be if you want them to, and that's cool. But they might not be if you don't want them to be, and that's also cool. Like, there's no right or wrong. It's very personal to you and the experience that you want in your life. And that's why it's incredibly powerful to show up empty in your life, to show up empty in every moment, in every conversation, in everything that you do. Every time you sit at your desk to work, every time you read a book, every time you listen to a podcast, every time you have a conversation with your partner, every time you go out with your mates, show up empty and see what happens. And you get a lot more richness out of life through doing that, and using that to look forward into your future and say, what if my future was empty? In fact, it is empty because nothing's laid out already. My future is empty. What do I want to create? Ask yourself that question. And like I said, I'd like to invite you to answer it by hitting me up on Instagram, DMing me at I am Alex Manzi.